This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to the Thinking Critical Comic Book Podcast. It's time for the first episode of Slabbed and Raw. We're going to talk about all things comic book collecting. What are the hot comic books to collect? What to look out for? Where are some values? All the things that are trending within the comic book collecting, subculture. And here with me to talk about that is the critical curmudgeon himself, Pele. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm here. Damn it, I'm here. Awesome. This is going to be great. Looking forward to this shit. Got my two collecting buddies with me, and let's meet them. Yule.
Yeah, we got Yule Carter and Fantastic Comics. How you doing, Clay?
I'm great. I'm really into back issues since that's what we seem to be selling a lot of at the store. And, we're always trying to get all that stuff out, but it's hard to keep track of what people are really super interested in and what people have been told they're supposed to be interested in. So it can be tricky, and I hope this will help.
Absolutely. And last but not least is Doc, the man who's been here since day one. He's got quite the man cave. He might not be selling all of his comic books, but he is hoarding them.
Yes, I am hoarding and hoarding and hoarding and hoarding. And although with some of the prices that we're seeing these days, I might be selling and selling and selling.
He's talked about your man cave again.
Yes, he did. Might be time for Doc to put another down payment on a house, get a second man cave going. You know what I'm saying? With maybe the prices going where they are, you probably could do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get right into it. We've got a few topics to cover today. First things first, we're going to talk about some of the comic books in the back issue market that are going up in price and you might want to look out for. This might not be the time to jump on these. Pele, what are some of the comic books do you think people should be wary of at this moment?
Yeah, everything that's a 9.8. Anything that's graded a 9.8. With just a few exceptions, avoid that shit because it's getting crazy right now. Serious on that. If it's a hot key, you see in the lists and go collect in the places like that, and you see, the hot 100, the hot 200, something like that. At 9.8, unless you find a screaming deal, it's going to be crazy overpriced.
Why is that?
Oh God, because people from the card industry, from the card industries and stuff like that are coming into the hobby, and they're looking for the Beckett, they're looking for the BGS 10s, they're looking for the PSA 9s and 10s, and they want the best of the best, and that's what they're grabbing. And of course, comic collectors have always kind of gravitated toward the higher grades. Anyway, so there's a price premium right now. It's a really healthy one. Usually, most of the time, you're going to see a premium about 20-30% over a 9.6. We're seeing doubling. We're seeing more than doubling on some issues. Ultimate Fallout 4, which is one that I'm telling people to avoid right now. First appearance of Miles Morales. It's a great comic. It really is. When it was $500 for a 9.6, I was telling people all day to buy that book. It was fantastic. Now a 9.8 will set you back $3,500.
$3,500.
$4,000.
It's crazy.
And that's like, ow, that's real money. And
you're throwing real money away if you don't get that slabbed.
Ooh, it's like that's some pain right there, and people are paying it. And there's
is it just
so many
speculation about the success of Into the Spider-Verse, or are there more plans for Miles Morales? What's got this? Is he just a character that's in people's conscience?
They've build him up as the next Spider-Man, of course. And Peter Parker, something's going to happen to Peter Parker. He's going to go away. Peter Parker's not going anywhere. Miles is a great character. He really is. I love him as a character. I love reading his books. I usually get them in collected trades and stuff. But, I love the character. He was great in Enter the Spider-Verse, the Edge of Spider-Verse. He's an awesome kid, but he's not Spider-Man. And he's not Spider-Man yet, and I don't know if he'll ever really be Spider-Man as much as he just Miles Morales. And it definitely deserves to be up there, but it's too fast, too much, too quick, and it's insane right now. If you buy it now, The market's going to correct. And I see it every time. It happens in crypto, happens in comics, happens in collectibles all the time. You're buying right now at the top. You're buying here at the leading edge. It's going to retrace 40, 50%. And then you're going to be waiting for your comic to go back up.
Like 10 years.
6, 10 years, 6, 8, 10, 12 years from now. And it'll finally reach back to where it was when you paid for it initially. And if you've got 50 years, who cares? If you got 30, 40 years, who cares? But, most people want to see a return maybe in 10 years, and you're not going to get it.
$3,500 is a lot of money just be sitting on the shelf waiting for it to recoup its value. Hey, Doc, what are you looking at? What comics, when you think about that, are really just going up in prices and you're just wary of you? Like, I see what's happening, and that ain't right. That comic is never going to keep that kind of value.
Oddly enough, Wolverine #1.
Mm.
It's not a first appearance. It's not a major key. I mean, it's his first solo book.
You're talking about the limited series.
Yeah, I'm talking about the limited series.
Claremont and Frank Miller, though.
It's Claremont and Miller, which is great. It's a solid book. I mean, it's a great comic to have. But 9/8 are selling in the over $3,000 range now. Ooh. That is too much for this book. I'm sorry. It's way too much. I just bought a raw one because I was tired, and I know I overpaid for it.
You're raw dog and Wolverine, huh?
I did, and for some reason, it was a book that I kept pushing off and putting off on buying, and I finally decided to just bite the bullet. And I know I paid at the peak. Absolutely.
Is that something people should be looking out for, Pele? Is if you've been waiting to pull the, go in and get that comic you've been waiting for, now isn't the time to wait anymore. If you really need it, like, get it now before it goes too high.
I would actually, if you waited already so long.
I know I should have waited, but I got that like hit of FOMO while I was, and that's one of the things that is going on right now. Everybody's sitting there getting like real hard FOMO where they're like, oh shit.
It's that app that tells you what everyone's doing.
Am I going, is it going, because it's a 50-50 shot right now. Am I buying at the peak, or is it going to keep going up? And you're seeing that with all kinds of different investments, everything from comics to crypto and stocks and everything else. And I got hit with the FOMO, and I just pulled the trigger on a really nice quality, high grade raw, but I still paid way too much for it.
You get it graded?
Oh, go ahead.
I might get it graded. I don't know. I kind of like
that much
having
coin into it. You might as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Get the reprint for $2.
I have the reprint.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you might as well.
For reading, yeah. For reading, yeah. It's if you're going to, God, if you've just got to bite the bullet and you just got to have that damn book and you're worried that it's never going to come down again or anything like that. If you're decent at grading, or if you want to learn how to grade or something like that, buy a nice raw book. Buying into, like I said, 9/8s right now. My God, even 9/6s are getting to be eye-watering. Whatever grade that you can stomach, that's like, okay, yeah, I don't mind an 8.5. I don't mind a 9.0. It's like, that looks all right.
If it wouldn't have been raw, I wouldn't have pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
But I felt like I had a little bit more wiggle room, especially pricing wise and negotiating wise. I was able to get the guy to come down a little bit when I bought it, because I bought another book from him too. And I was like, okay, I can pull the trigger on this because it hadn't been pressed or cleaned. So I'm like, I can maybe get it pressed and cleaned, and it might turn out even better than it is. And it's not, I don't have an objective grade on it. So I had a little bit of wiggle room, and the price on it was more reasonable. Now, it was still way too high for that book, but I think that's a book that's, if you're not, I mean, I'm literally giving advice against my own best interest right now. If you haven't bought that book, wait.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right, Are you starting to feel bad on some of the prices you're selling these books for? You're like, listen, I would wish you would just come back in a year when this became more reasonable. Or are you just ready to cash it in?
It's funny because like when you're grading comics for the store and you look in guide, it only goes to 9.2. So you kind of have to imagine what the prices are going, any higher if you deem that comic is actually that grade. And, you go to eBay, you find out what they've sold for. You go to GP analysis, which is like a CGC thing. Everything's recorded. So you can see what they have gone for in the past and that type of stuff. But I gotta let you know, as I'm pricing them, I am not, slabbing them. So I don't want to charge that same price. I'm not going to charge, $3,000 for some book that I think is a 9.8 if it's not slabbed, even though I might still think my grading is better than CGC. It just doesn't seem like it's really fair or unrealistic. So when I'm selling raw books and I think it's a near mint plus, something that's higher than 9.2, I try and be realistic. But sometimes, you have a hot comic, and if you're not going to send it in to get it slabbed, you're probably still going to charge a little bit more than normal. Case in point, Moon Knight, really hot book right now. People are getting ready for the TV show. Love the character. Really looking forward to it. And my favorite stuff is the Doug Mensch, Bill Sienkiewicz stuff from back when I was a kid, obviously. And Guide only says it's a $5 book in 9.2. And we all know that's bull.
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
That's bull. So what do? $10, $15, $50, and then maybe just get slabbed and charge $100 or whatever it is. I'm not charging that much though. And if you go to my site, you'll see that.
And a lot of people are now, they're if they can't get just the exact key that they want, they're falling back to the second appearance. They're falling back to other appearances, other keys like that. So there's other ways to do it, but I'm telling you, if you really, really got to have it, go raw. But honest to God, if you're wanting to get a best deal right now, after the gains that we've seen, after the explosions that we've seen, it's, wait a year, wait 2 years, the market's going to cool off. And when it does, it's going to correct, I think, substantially. So
I also think it's like you said, Pele, there's a lot of people from outside the industry getting in and collecting, whether it's because they got extra money recently, they're trying to, put their kids through college in the future, or they just come from like another collecting arena. They're probably going to get out of it eventually. And
they're going to have to drop this stuff.
Yeah, my personal book that I just cannot spend the money on, and I do want it in a high grade, and I don't even care to want it, but I just want it because it's so out there and it's so big and it's so bodacious. Amazing Spider-Man 300, right? The McFarlane, the Venom, and all that other stuff. Just like Pele said, if you get a 9.8 of that, that's probably going to get you close to $3,000 to $4,000 right now. Maybe even more if it's one of those signature.
We got one up at the shop, and it's 9.8, 300, perfect centering, white pages. I got $5,000 on it, and because I don't want to sell it. It's a really, really nice wall piece. And it's beautiful. I've got I went and had it re-slabbed with the custom Spider-Man graphic on the label and everything like that. It just looks the tits. It looks absolutely awesome. And I've got it on a nice little Todd McFarlane background kind of thing like that, just sitting up there. And I 1,000 people have come in the last few months, just people, hundreds of people asking, oh God, what's the least you'll take on it? 5,000. Really? Come on. No, 5,000.
Never been on that one now, people.
That's not for sale. It is for sale, but it's like, I can't just tell somebody, well, that's not for sale for any price. That just turns people off. But if you give them a target that's just like, they'll at least go, wow.
So Pele, I remember not too long ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, you suggested people with new comics don't slab them like when you first buy them. You're just not sure what the value on that could be. But literally 24 months ago, if you bought a new issue of Something is Killing the Children, you had it slabbed and graded.
No kidding.
It's worth upwards of $1,500.
Yeah.
How insane is that a book that's only like 24 months old is already up there, approaching like a Miles Morales or some of these other comic books?
Yeah, it's oh wow! I just can't recommend it. It's just that's crazy, and
it's insane. I get that they're talking about making it into a streaming show, but you don't even know if it's going to be successful.
Well, it's The Walking Dead for this generation. Walking Dead #1 for the previous generation was wow. That was the big indie book. That was the big indie book that just blew expectations, and everybody went wild and everything like that. And I get it. I really do. There's people, strong advocates for the series, and it's fine. It's a great series, but it doesn't have the track record that Walking Dead did. It didn't have the monumental following quite like Walking Dead. So does like Walking Dead. So
feels like the market's kind of betting on that it's going to do that though.
It's betting on it. And someday I think it will legitimately be worth its price. But right now, just a lot of FOMO, a lot of excitement build up around it, and people have kind of let their spitting go a little bit wild with that book. And but it's another great book. It's a book that I think has long-term potential. It's just. Get it graded. Definitely get it graded. Something like that, I would. Another one. There's so many of the newer ones now that seem like they're going to be, the big thing, the big key.
What about Nice House on the Lake? That's the next tie-in book. It feels like in the vein of Something Is Killing the Children. If you were a speculator, should you be getting the best copy available at your shop on Wednesday and getting that motherfucker graded?
No, I wouldn't.
Tuesday because it's a
Tuesday.
I wouldn't get it graded. Find the nicest.
Be gone.
Yeah. Find the nicest raw copy of it first. Just find it, put it in a nice Mylar or something like that. Stick it back. And
we'll be talking about that later.
The one thing I'll say is BGC is taking so long now to get their stuff back to you. You almost have to send it out immediately to get it back in any length of, by the time it ggets hot, it might take a while.
And that's the thing is while it's gone, it could go through an entire heating and cooling cycle. It's just, it really is that, wild right now because I've got a lot of books that that book's starting to heat up. I need to send it off and get it graded. And by the time it gets back, it's like, oh, well, it didn't exactly do what I thought it was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
hey, are there any other books that when you're just looking at the prices and you're just like, there's a correction that's due and it's probably going to happen within the next 2 or 3 years? It's just blatant to you that it's like it's gone too high right now.
Incredible Hulk 180, just too much, too fast.
I think 181.
Yeah, both. They really have. They've gone up to, I mean, we've already seen it before. It's gone too hot and then dropped back. It did that back in the early 90s. I mean, the early 2000s. It was already approaching, at that point, which was the most valuable Bronze Age comic, even more than Giant Size, and or X-Men 94 when it was really crazy. And then it cooled off. And it's going to, and I don't see it. I just don't see it staying where it is. I don't see that's what I kept saying. Most of these comics are not going to stay where they are. They might see some more heating going on here, but I just don't feel that, the legs are there considering the way things are going right now. What do you think, Doc?
I just think that there's way too many goddamn copies of them out there.
Yeah. That's my problem with Ultimate Fallout 4.
And Spiderman 300.
Yeah.
I mean, there are. Demand is high because they're like the comics of their decade, and they're going to be really, really in demand, but there's not a shortage of these books.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna go with just books that the recent heating up of McFarlane's Spidey 1, I mean, yeah, I know it's back to being a $20 book.
That's a lot anyway.
I know, but there's like 5 million of them.
That's my point.
Legitimately. Yeah, and it's back to being a $20 book, whereas, look, I've just picked them up mostly out of dollar bins and sent them off because I was just trying to hit every single different variation of them, like the newsstand of the green one, the gold one, and the silver one, the direct market of both of them, the platinum, and there was one more that I don't remember off the top of my head. It doesn't matter. I was just buying them for the sake of buying them, and then all of a sudden it's back to being a $20 book, like it's 1993 again. And I'm like, okay,
time to cash out and go to the script club, man. What are you doing?
I know, right?
Yeah,
singles.
That gold cover one. I love that gold cover one in high grade. I think that's a good solid. If you're going to go after one of those, the one with the UPC barcode, the Walmart copy, is really legitimately hard to find in high grade. So look for something special in that. The silver and the regular cover are just, that's just
they're out there.
That's the risk with messing with a lot of these Bronze Age and newer comics. Is the print runs on the books that were really popular. But the other thing that's good out there, Pele, is there's opportunities because there are some enormously low print runs on modern comics. As the readership has gone down, speculation's going on there. And if somebody misses an introduction of a new character or a key moment, it might be underprinted for what the demand is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a really great example of that is Kanto #1.
And they were all damaged too.
And they were. 80% of them have like severe creasing. And
such a good comic though.
And it's
awesome.
Gonna be
a cartoon.
It is. And there was a lot of buzz. The price went insane. And especially Will Smith attached to it. And it was like, wow, this is really good. And then now the air's kind of gone out of it a little bit. And but if you want to go after something that's modern, new, that is not artificially scarce, go find a high grade copy of Kanto and put it back.
Or Naomi. I don't love the character, but I think the first issue print run was like 12,000 for a brand new DC character that's on the Justice League right now. And there are rumors. I know the show didn't happen. Right? No, the show's still going to happen. Yeah, that's a hot book right there. That could be end up being a key issue down the road. Yeah,
yeah. I also don't think that it's going to be that crazy to find them. It's still not crazy to find them, despite the limited print run, because people are kind of wanting to let them go so they can go buy the keys.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's crazy, Doc. What are some of the books that you're looking out there? You're like, oh, that's kind of juicy right now. Maybe should I be going speculating on that? Maybe even if it's not a character you're interested in.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of them out there. I think a lot of them are already a little overpriced, but I don't know if it's necessarily new stuff, because especially in the modern era, there's before stuff even hits, everybody knows what's going to be the hot thing to buy. Finding stuff that everybody misses is really, really hard. And honestly, I miss a lot of them.
What was it? What was that comic back in the day, Bones? No one realized how important it was going to be.
Bone?
Yeah.
Jeff Smith's Bone. Yeah.
Severely underprinted, just like TMNT, the first issue. No one knew what
Cerebus.
it was.
Yeah. But the ones that these are ones that I think that while there's still a lot of copies of them out there, especially with the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving into Fantastic Four and eventually X-Men, I think that there's a lot of stuff in the X-Men from about issue 150 to 200 that there was a lot of new characters created, a lot of new interesting stuff that was added to the X-Men mythos that ends up being a very overlooked era. Everybody buys between 94 and 142, but I think, and then the next couple issues are kind of there's not a lot going on. They were trying to really find their footing again, but then from issue 150 until about issue 200, they were hitting on all cylinders again. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff that came out in that era those books get overlooked from both the collector and the seller point of view, and they end up really cheap. I think that they have a lot of growth room.
And those are books too that they're easy to find in low to mid grade.
Yeah.
And surprisingly difficult to find in high grade.
I don't know. You really think so?
I mean, high grade, like 96.
I hear what you're saying. X-Men was really at its height in like the 150s to 200s. Like anybody that like got on late on the burn run was still reading during this time. What I find a lot of times is that I am buying those books because people are selling them all the time. And eventually I feel like it's, in my own little bubble, it's everybody in the world is selling those X-Men's, you know what I mean? But I have a plethora of them. Just because I always buy them. I don't want them to go to waste. But I think eventually, that nostalgia factor hits. People that sell those things want to get those things back. And I agree, Doc, Pele, those books, especially in high grades, are going to be valuable later on. And they're very good, too.
Yeah, people
they're readily available.
Mm-hmm. People read them. That's another thing, too. That's what I was saying as far as high grade. People read them. They reread them. They reread them and reread them. And, finding them in 5.5, 6.0, around there is pretty simple. Finding them in a 9.8.
Do you, Pele, have people come in and buy multiple copies often?
Not typically.
Like I used to do that when I was a kid with my father. We'd buy like
not
five.
Not as much anymore. Not as much anymore because, $4 or $5 a pop. Yeah. But some people do. There's whales that are buying they buy the main cover and they'll buy 2 of the variants, on a book. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, they did get their money in a different way.
Yeah.
So what we're also seeing besides, the expansion out with the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, with the MCU, which has been able to drive some interest, and we've got the MCU on Disney Plus now, is we're starting to enter the all new, all different age of Marvel comics, like the Marvel Legacy era. Like a lot of those books are kind of reviled.
Yeah.
Do you see opportunity there where the book is going to end up having growth potential, even though maybe a comic reader doesn't like it? Joe Blow normie that maybe gets attached to a character doesn't realize, as far as comic books go, it kind of sucked.
If you're listening to this, when you're listening to this, and you see an Ironheart #1 out there, you should buy it, regardless if you like that character.
First appearance in Iron Man too.
Yeah, I was going to say Invincible Iron Man #9, I think it was. First appearance. I'm sure a lot of people
coming up.
All of that stuff. Ms. Marvel. If you can't get her very first appearance, get her first issue. Those aren't cheap anyway right now, but you might want to get in as close to the ground floor now as possible.
What about the Iceman? I imagine they're going to go there too.
Why not? I mean,
the problem I have with that is that woke comics and stuff like that, I just don't. If they crater, if the movies crater and the properties crater in the MCU, those books are going to follow suit, and that's what worries me.
Well, the one thing you can do with a character in comics to make it worth more later is do something with the character, have something happen, and if that occurs, then their first appearance will be important again. So even if these characters are not loved now, there could be something later on, and just sticking with them for 10, 15 years, makes you grow a little more, well, this is Riri. This is what we read, you take care, you accept it.
Looking on the DC side of this, because we've talked a lot about Marvel, but on the DC side of this, with the exception of, Dick Grayson, whose first appearance is pretty damn impressive. I'll tell you, and it's, you're talking $50,000. Detective number 39.
People love Dick.
But all the other Robins cheap, in my opinion, and even Dick Grayson, the Nightwing, when he became Nightwing, cheap. In my opinion, you've got the Damian's first appearance, Batman 655, cheap. It's $40 in a near mint copy. You can find it all day on eBay. It's just, what do you think, Yule?
Audiences are just waiting to meet Jason Todd. I think when he finally makes it out there to the public conscience and they realize what the character is and what he represents, I think he's going to end up being like a fan favorite.
I think in the movies, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's going to be, this is an investment. All right. This is an investment because we've not seen Robin in a very long time in the films. And last time we saw him, it was not
Thank
pretty.
you, Schumacher.
Yes.
So bat nipples and all, it was not a pretty time
and
to
the
be.
Batman Amex.
Whew. Poor
But
George
kids
Clooney.
grow up with Robin all the time. What with Teen Titans Go and the animated movies. So again, there's always an opportunity for something to make, something to happen to make a character hot again.
Yeah. Right now I'm seeing The Dark Knight Returns, Kara's first appearance.
Oh yeah. Carrie Fisher, right?
Carrie Fisher. Yeah.
No, not Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
God, that's what the hell.
Carrie,
you got me agreeing.
Carrie Kelly.
I always get her to, Carrie Kelly. I love her. She's a great Robin. And
Princess Leia is a bad Robin. There's a difference.
Yeah, bad Robin. She couldn't fly either. I don't care what the movie said.
There was I was listening to that Perch interview with Bill Willingham, and they were talking about when the spoiler became Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's kind of like things like that,
Stephanie Brown.
That's cool. Yeah.
Stephanie Brown.
Oh, it's Stephanie Brown. Yeah.
Stephanie Brown is my favorite Robin. I don't care.
There you go. And I think
that's why you're not a DC fan, Doc.
I know.
A Marvel aficionado.
That's but that's cool because there's a lot of people that might not have been DC fans and they ultimately did at that time. So again, that nostalgia factor talking about different Robins. I don't know if it's a cheat to have different Robins. It's just the way it is these days.
I know, but it's a great investment because there are all the other books, all the other main keys and everything like that, with a couple of exceptions, like Deathstroke seems to be still pretty cheap. But first appearance of Deathstroke, New Teen Titans number 2.
Teen Titans, yeah.
But the Robins are cheap, in my opinion. They're great investments right now. They haven't really gone up that high, and you can find them raw and for really good bargains and buy them. Because when Robin finally does get back into the movies, into the DCU, those books are not going to be cheap anymore.
Well, they're doing it a little bit with their streaming stuff with the Titans. They've got Dick Grayson in there. Mm-hmm. I believe it's Jason Todd. Is it Jason Todd or is it? Yeah, it's Jason Todd that's in there right now.
Yeah.
There's some other DC characters. When you think of the Green Lanterns, we know Guy Gardner's going to be on that streaming show. Are the prices on the first appearance of Guy Gardner reasonable right now? Like he's obviously going to get some.
That was my second thing I was going to talk about with DC. That's okay because you're right. We're thinking alike. Green Lantern, Silver Age Green Lantern is cheap in my opinion. That title just is not tracking with a lot of the other DC Silver Age books and Bronze Age.
It'd be even better if John Cena was playing Guy Gardner like he should have.
Dude, that would be so cool.
Peacekeeper.
No, he's great peacemaker. He's a great peacemaker.
I'm bummed I didn't get to make my joke about how Detective Comics is 38 is so cheap for first appearance of Robins. But
it is.
Well, yeah, definitely, totally cheap. You can go find
it. Cheap.
And you can always find a 98 copy of that too.
You're just littering the dollar bins.
Grab the first Joker too while you're at it.
Yeah.
Pick up a penguin for me also.
Yeah. Nobody gives a shit about those characters.
Oh my God, man. It's
what do you think of these new characters that James Tynion's come out with? Pele with Punchline obviously went right through the roof. Feels like Ghostmaker has made a mark. We've got what was it? Not Mighty Molly. It's Miracle Molly.
Miracle Molly, Clown Hunter.
Yeah, he's created all these characters. Are any of them do you think have long-term investment? It feels like Punchline especially is already kind of overexposed.
Yeah, she's peaked. The price is coming down on those, and I think that once they kind of reach whatever you think is in your head is the reasonable price, you should buy them. If you have any interest. I still think
Underboss could be a great character that has like long-term potential in Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
To come in and do some things.
Clown Hunter is going to be something because I think that when he gets older, there's going to be a change in him, and maybe a Robin, maybe a new Nightwing. God, I don't know. It could be anything. Well, new Deathstroke, new Punisher. It could be.
I think Punchline is kind of followed the Spider-Gwen trajectory.
It's
really
a copy of a
popular.
copy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a copy of a copy. It's a, it got really hot right out the gate. Got wildly overexposed right out the gate. People are already starting to kind of turn on the character, not completely, but there's a lot less interest in it, and you're starting to see the price come down the same way you saw it with Edge of Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
Now
there's a lot of them though.
Yeah, there's much more of the Batman issue than there was Edge of Spider-Verse. Yeah. So,
one way I've been looking at the 1 in 25s, which those are great. They got the character sketch, variants on those, like Clown Hunter's, 96. It's the yellow cover with he's standing there profiling. That's settled down now to about $50. For Raw. I think that's reasonable for that book.
It's reasonable.
So look at those, because you can find that for Punchline, you can find that for Clown Hunter, you can find them for the Magistrate.
That Nightwing one was really awesome too.
It was.
The one that I do think though, out of from the Tinian stuff, that actually might have a little bit of a chance of growth, is, and there's a lot of them out there, is Wildcats #1.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to get first Grifter, especially if Grifter becomes a much more regular. I know I've never really liked the idea of bringing the Wildstorm characters into the DCU, but if they're going to use Grifter right and use him regularly in the Bat books, you might start seeing, because that's a book you could find out of dollar bins easily.
I dig.
No, not anymore. Right, you can't, Doc.
Just the regular A cover you can.
The gold foil one though is,
but the gold foil one's been high, like stupid high for since the 90s, except for right around the 2000s. Yeah.
That person won't sell that book unless you give them the money they want.
Exactly.
This is gold.
But you can find Wildcats #1 really cheap in a lot of dollar bins, and I think Grifter has a chance, because I think out of the Wildstorm characters that are integrated into the DCU, him and the Midnighter are going to be the two that are the most likely to really stick and actually have the chance of being utilized in film effectively.
The one thing I will go ahead thing right now for certain. He's getting a lot of play as far as the DC universe. So,
yeah, the Wildcats #1 rather, the gold foil one. Notice that most of those, Jim Lee just had a real problem of not signing those damn books, and they're all signed and they're all non-authenticated. And it's like, oh come on, why did you sign everything? And if you get them authenticated through CBCS or PGX, no PGX.
Don't
if you get them authenticated through CBCS, it's fine, but selling them, buying them raw always makes me nervous on that, because his signature is so easy to replicate.
Mine's unsigned, so I don't really care.
So, okay. Finding an unsigned one that's high grade, though, can be a challenge.
So, Paley, we talked, DC and Marvel here about opportunities, because everybody wants to get in on the ground level on the next Walking Dead. It feels like people have earmarked something is killing their children. One of the things I'm noticing with publishing is they aren't really doing a lot of ongoings as far as indie comics. It's a lot of, they're doing them in miniseries right now. Do you think that hurts like the long-term potential of some of these characters, where you're never going to get up to issue like 140? You're going to do 5 or 6 issues at a time.
I don't know about that. I think that, as long as those characters are still current, as long as they're still writing for them, keeping them in the consciousness of, of the public and stuff like that, I think that it doesn't do them any favors. I don't think, but as long as the stories are still good,
it becomes impressive.
Yeah, it does. It does. That's why Walking Dead, it was still marching on, the Walking Dead were still marching on, way, way past, what most collectors thought was going to be, a good price for that #1. The people that waited and waited and waited, they were out in the cold.
Yeah, and at that point, you're also competing with fans of the TV show, video games.
And I think that a lot of these books are going to get TV shows. What, you were talking before, What's Killing the Children. That's going to be a show.
Well, we know in Undiscovered Country, a lot of these things are in production. Yeah. I do want to put this one up here. I think the AWA seems to have a good idea of what they want to be as a comic publisher. So I think there's a potential that AWA becomes something important, maybe, in a few years' time. And Erratic feels like, it's like the beginning of their superhero universe. It's a great character. It's a well-written, well-illustrated comic. Like that was one that, the print run's going to be really small. I think that could end up being a potential comic that I would be interested in.
Yeah, I think it probably will be. The one thing it concerns me, and it concerns is its legs. Like we talked about before, Dark Knight Returns #1. It was a hot collectible even when it came out. Back in the day in the 80s, it was insane how popular that series was, and the values. You could find a near mint copy back then for about $80-$85. Well, up until about 2 years ago, you could still find an near mint copy of it for about $80 to $100. It's like it didn't really change as much as you thought it would. And now lately, 9.8s of that book. Have you seen what the 9.8s have done recently, Yule?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
1,500, $2,000.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm going to slap those right now.
They've
been opened.
We sold a whole set. We sold a whole set of 9.8s. Not too long ago, $2,500.
And if I was going to sell the 4 copies, the full set 1 through 4, in the store, it would probably cost you about $200 since they're raw.
Yeah.
So, of course, now I hear Pele saying it's $1,500, and I know this thing's at least a 9.8
for a 9.8. Yeah, 9.8.
I know my book is a 9.8. Like if it comes back not a 9.8, I'd be pissed. That type of thing, which happens all the time.
It's square bound. It should be. It should very be. Resistant. Never been opened. Very resistant. Now, a lot of them that I see on that is fingerprints. The back is a fingerprint magnet, and sometimes you get a greasy fingerprint on it that will not come off. Yeah, and people mishandled them and shit like that. And that's why we're going to talk about in the next segment what's so important about keeping your fingerprints off and everything. And
not buying Marvel comics of today.
I know it, man.
Yeah, all right, so before we get into it, do you guys have anything else to say about what's hot, what's not, potential investments right now?
Yeah, I want to jump on what Doc was saying about Wildcats, but I want to point out issues 3 and 4. In fact, I think 5 and 6 also, if I'm not mistaken, because it crosses over with Cyberforce. The first one's crossover with Youngblood, and then 10 through 13 has Chris Claremont on the book, and it has his character Huntsman. And unless DC gets their hands on that, those books will never be reprinted.
Yep.
As far as, unless, deals are made. So I don't think those are ever going to be something that's going to be like really sought after or anything special. But if you're the kind of person that wants to collect Wildcats and are in a store that knows what they're doing, they probably are going to charge a little extra for that stuff.
Yeah, finding them would be easy. Finding them in high grade be hard.
That's the other part, the high grade. And let's go to it.
All right, let's talk about this. Let's say you do what Doc did. You don't want to throw your money down on a 9.8. You want to get a nice raw comic book. Maybe you go in and you're speculating in there. You get first issue of The Nice House on the Lake, but you're not ready to fully commit. Spend the upwards of $40 to get it graded or whatever. You're going to want to do something to keep your book in immaculate condition. So when it does get hot, you can finally send it out there and spend the money and get your comic book back in great condition. Pele, what are some of the recommendations? What are some of the products that you should be looking at? What are just some of the basic rules that you need to do if you want to keep your comic in good condition without slabbing it?
Yeah, most people that collect comics, they'll if they have any kind of sense of preservation about them at all, they'll put them in a bag. They'll put them in a bag with a board. Mm-hmm. And that's better than nothing.
One piece of tape.
One piece of tape, bag and a board. That's fine. If it's better than nothing. Me, I like the big thick boards. I like the big 40 point, 60 point, 100 point boards. I double, triple board, at least triple board. on books, and then go with a nice 2 mil Mylar. Usually of the era that's one size larger than what you're using right now, than what the book calls for. Like say, if you got a modern book, I would go back to a silver. If you've got a silver, I'd go back to a golden age bag. Give it some padding around there. Let the board kind of protect the sides of the book. Because that's what it's for. It's going to take the bang and the knock or something like that. Whereas, the comic won't. And, if you get them like jammed up tight there to the edge, the side right there, and, you drop it, that corner, that board's not going to protect when the book's just right up against the edge. So,
are you storing your books flat or upright? Is there a special way?
Upright.
Okay.
Yeah. Flat's fine for temporary stuff. I've got over here in some boxes over here, I've got about 5 or 6 comics that aren't cheap comics, but they're kind of stacked up on top of each other for now. But I don't put anything heavy on top of them. Don't put your coffee. Don't put anything. I can't hurt these comics. Look, don't flip into
that.
it. Just
Paley's over here.
Stop eating over your comics when you're reading them. Also,
oh my God, dude! I have seen some shit.
Doug Ernst eating pizza next to Silver Age comics always gives me serious anxiety.
I get the heartburn. Not him. It's like, oh, dude.
But yeah, Paley's over here talking about triple boarding. Jesus Christ, man! Why don't you just go buy some fucking plywood to start putting it behind?
That's
the
right.
boards.
Yeah, what
he wants to be able
5
to
comics in a box.
Yeah.
I do. I triple board those bastards, and I'll get the comic care boards, the Gerber stuff. They're glossy front back.
Yeah,
because if you've got a $400 book. You got even a $250, $300 book. Those boards are like 25 cents a piece at the worst.
Right.
So, 25 cents a piece, 3 of those, 75 cents. Got your Mylar on top of that. At worst, you're spending about $1.75, $2 on a $250 to $400 comic.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're a fool if you don't do that. I go and I'll get the Gerber books or Gerber bags and boards for my really expensive books also, or just things I want to take care of more than anything.
My lights are great. I mean, the BCW stuff is fine. Their Mylar's fine. If you can't find the Mylights, they're fine. I don't have anything but love for those guys. I don't think that the quality of the Mylar is as high as it is with the Gerber for the Mylights. But it's fine. Cheap out on boards if you want to for just your regular comics and stuff like that.
Halfbacks are fine.
Halfbacks are great.
Yeah.
What I'll do with a halfback is I will actually kind of use it as a temporary, micro cell paper or something like that. Stick it in the middle of a Silver Age book. Be careful. Stick it half back in the middle of it. Close it up very carefully.
Don't jam it in there.
Don't jam it in there, but be careful with that. And you can give the book a little bit of extra support along the spine.
Hold on one moment. I just want to interject for people that might not be the most serious collectors that are here. I just want to explain to you what a halfback is. They make halfback and fullback, and what it is the thickness of the board. Basically, one is half the thickness of the other, and that's the halfback. They're it's just so people know.
If you go into Amazon and you put halfback comic board,
it's not. Yes, it doesn't go only halfway up the back. It's a full size, board, but it's just only half the thickness of the fullback. So a little less support, a little bit less rigidity, but perfectly sufficient for 99% of your collecting.
And it'll go into bags probably easier a little bit also.
And the halfback from Gerber are about the same thickness as the freaking, fullbacks from really crappy companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Gerber
it's like
with an E, by the way.
Yeah, they're like the gold standard for collectibles. I think we lost Doc there for a second.
I think he's having some technical issues. He'll be back. But so Pele, when you're thinking about protecting your comic books, seriously, by going cheap on some of these boards that you're talking about, how much could it end up costing you in the end? Like theoretically, I guess it could be like $1 million depending on the comic book.
Yeah,
but you
modern
could really
comics
cost yourself a lot of money. As far as
modern
grading.
comics, not so much. I don't think modern comics, glossy, slick, glossy papers, and as far as no newsprint involved at all, I don't really see a big deal there. Just give them good support, triple board, stick it in a Mylar. You don't even really need the Mylar. I like the Mylar because of the rigidity it adds. It's still got some rigidity in that Mylar, and it's going to give you a little bit of bump protection and stuff where polybags aren't going to do jack. So, but you start getting into the newsprint stuff, that you've only got the buffering on one side of the board and not on the other. The other one feels kind of rough, like that. Gosh, just don't do that.
And not only that, it is recommended, or at least it's always been told me ever since I started collecting, was the bags, you want to actually change them every year. The boards too, really.
I think I'd go like when they start to yellow.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like you don't realize when they're yellowing a lot of times. Pele and I have to buy people's comics, take them out of the bags, take the board over here, put the comic over here, put the bag in a bag or a box or something. And by the time you get to 10 or 15, you start seeing how yellow these bags really are. You can't see through them anymore. And then you start taking a look at some of these boards that these comics have been in for since Doc bought that issue 150 of X-Men.
Yeah.
It has the advertisement of the comic in the board, not the back page, but the inside back cover advertisement on the board. Yeah. And that's crazy. It's like when
people don't realize,
and on newsprint,
I don't want to call him out, but that We Love Comics guy, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy, but he's like, the polybags last forever, man. They've read 25, 30 years. This book still looks great. And he pulls it out and I'm like, all the cover gloss is gone because the polybag leached all the cover gloss off the cover. And he's not noticing that. That shouldn't look that way. Mm-hmm. If you look at a near mint copy of it that exists out in the wild, or one that's slabbed, it's got cover gloss. The book that you just pulled out of that 30-year-old polybag that gloss is gone. And you've just damaged the condition of that comic.
And if you're buying, I'm sorry, Doc, if you buy this stuff regularly, like you're supposed to upkeep it, it costs a lot of money. And like Pele said, just buy the Mylar. Sorry, Doc.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point I was going to make. Just buy, if you start, I mean, I went through my collection a couple of years ago and really started rebagging, reboarding. I mean, there was stuff that I bought 20 years ago that was already 20 years old when I bought it. And at the time I just kind of left it in the same bag. And I started going through this. Yeah, I'm finding stuff where it's ink transfer from the inside, because while these things, because the problem with comics is you got to, especially storing comics in plastic, is you have to worry about off-gassing. Mm. Off-gassing occurs as plastic ages. And you're essentially, the polybag is just a polypropylene plastic that is clear and it off-gasses. I know they say it's like low VOC or whatever it is, but it still off-gasses, and that affects the quality of your paper. It infiltrates the paper and damages the comic over time. So if you go with Mylar in the first place, there is no off-gassing.
Yeah. What's the price increase on the materials, though, for Mylar over the poly?
You're looking 20. If you were to buy a Mylar at the store, like that's already pre-prepared for you, and you were to buy a poly bag, they're normally, a lot of stores have them already pre-prepared where you can just buy a couple. It's normally like 50 cents for Mylar and 20 cents for poly.
That's for a MyLite, though. That's probably a MyLite.
Yeah, it's probably a MyLite, but if you're just buying one, you're looking, so it's about double the price. Yeah. Double to.
So if you have a hefty collection, that could be into the thousands of dollars.
Yes, it can. I went through. I got a 10,000 book collection that I went last year. I started a project to rebag everything. I'm probably only a quarter of the way through it.
You're going to spend $5,000 to bag your comics.
Well, I mean, whenever I'm buying them myself, it's a couple of cents per book.
Oh,
cheaper.
so you're doing the materials yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing the materials. I'm putting together the bags and boards myself.
And you're using Mylar?
Yeah.
And Mylar's cheap too. That's the thing, right?
So I'm still probably looking at not really. Mylar.
I thought like when you get the sheets of Mylar that it's like
no.
super cheap.
No, I'm not actually making my own bags. I mean, I'm buying.
Sorry.
I was like, well, I was imagining Doc with a heat
I thought
heat
you had a
crimper.
machine.
press
I'm
or
like,
something?
you gotta start getting this going, man.
I know.
Go on eBay and make some money.
Yeah,
Be a hell of a lot cheaper, I'll tell you that.
actually, now that I think about it, maybe that might be once I get my workshop done in the basement, that might be my next project.
Oh, dude,
I know a guy that made his own bullets, man. He saved a lot of money.
I do that. Yeah.
But seriously, no, like rebagging my collection it's going to end up costing me probably $5-6 grand by the time I'm all done.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have to do it again because it's been a couple years.
Mm-mm.
Now,
This is not getting
Mylar,
Mylar though.
Oh, not for Mylar. That's the great thing. Mylar has an archival, rotation rate of 200 years.
Yeah, I've always heard that 200 years. It will
That's
last longer than us.
It'll last a lot longer than us. So just do it right the first time. If it's a book that you think that you have any compassion for whatsoever, you care about it, especially if you've paid any decent amount of money, it's a key of any kind, just put it in Mylar. You don't have to worry about it again, and you don't have to worry about losing your cover gloss, and you don't have to worry about swapping bags out and stuff like that. So,
but do you get to set it and forget it? Like, because I notice in my bags, I get a lot of dust. Is Mylar like dust resistant too? Because that's what I need.
Well, you can seal the edges of the flap, because I just tape the flap down, and then I put 3 pieces of tape around the flap.
I got 3 kids. I can't be going out on tape.
Or you can get a top loader.
Top loaders.
you're going to get dust in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about there's one that we've got over there at the shop that's a top loader, and it has the ceiling flap down, and they're not too bad.
Yeah, I used to not like a Mylar that would have the flap. I used to only have the top loaders that were like open air on the top.
The archivals.
And the thing was you'd put like a piece of tape on the top so it would close it a bit. And I hate those now. But they were thicker, on the bottom.
They are thicker.
Yeah. And that's the one you could drop it and probably it'll be okay.
I have found that using the Mylar, when you fold the flap over, it ends up being almost airtight. So any of the air that's in the bag is actually a lot more difficult to press out. Yeah. To compress it and make it a little more sealed. So you end up with a bigger gap, which means that you're unlikely to get any significant amount of dust. You have to put a significant
New Jack City where everyone's got like masks on and no shirts while you're
clean room.
I need a clean
start. Yeah, you're building computers and you're storing archival comics. Same thing.
Yep. Yeah. You were talking about off-gassing. That's one thing that was interesting. I had a guy one time come in with a collection. It was all poly bags, from the 1970s. Back when to get bags, there was like only 2 sources of comic book bags. And, the guy had brought in a collection, really super valuable Silver Age books, Bronze Age books. And back when he put them into storage, he had wrapped them up in hefty bags in tape. And he had sealed them up completely airtight inside of these 4 long boxes. And he brought them in like that, just in poly bags with boards, in those 4 boxes with hefty bags around them, completely, locked in airtight, taped them, hermetically sealed the damn things, came in, brought them into the shop. And I said, this is not going to end well. He goes, what do you mean? I said,
moisture in there, right?
No, off-gassing. The off-gassing from the paper, from the pulp paper, everything. From the pulp paper, the poly bags, as well as the boards that were kind of sketchy to begin with. And somebody taken like poster board and cut it to the size of comic boards instead of buying acid-free boards. And when we went to go and look inside of those,
everything's yellow.
Everything was brown. Brittle.
Even worse.
And it stank. It stank like an old rotten tree inside. And every single one of those books was ruined. And you're talking about entire Silver Surfer run. You're talking about, oh yeah.
Did you cry?
I just shook my head. That guy wept.
I went in the shower later and cried.
Fantastic Four 48, 49,
So your comic
50.
books need to breathe, is what you're saying.
They need to have some air circulation, but most importantly is just don't put them with things that make the off-gassing worse. And you can use microchannel paper, which is special paper that they sell, which will absorb the acid from the newsprint paper, the pulp paper. It'll absorb that. The halfbacks will do a pretty good job of that as well. But you want to take care of that off gas. You want to take care of that acid before it destroys your investment in your valuable collection. But that guy, probably, at the time it was like $15,000-$20,000. It was just gone, mid-grade, beautiful mid-grade collection. And now probably 50 to 100 grand.
And you know what? I bet. And the thing is, he thought he was doing the right thing by sealing it up. It prevented it from any moisture accessing it. But he didn't take into account. There's a lot of things that people didn't.
That's what the show's for, Doc.
I know.
Yeah. We don't want this to happen anymore. No, it's a travesty.
We're here to educate.
Hey, while we're on the subject of travesties, really quickly, I think the postmen out there that folded up comic books have some reparations that need to be paid.
Damn right.
Owners and fans out there
for the subfold.
Well, that's Marvel's fault too, because the envelope is like the size of a big letter, and they would just fold it and just slide that comic right into just an envelope, seal it up, mail that SOB off to you, and but then they changed, and then they went to the flat manila folders. Then they still kept folding them and sticking it in your damn mailbox.
Then they went to the clear cellophane in the 90s, because I actually had a sub in the 90s to like a handful of the Marvel titles, and it came in a clear cellophane with it was like half of a halfback. It was
so thin. It was like paper thin.
It was only marginally thicker than like the actual like comic book paper, and
a lot like a Marvel comic of today is what you're saying.
Yes, it was about and it had the advertisement for more of their books to sub to as the backer board.
And it would have a picture usually, right?
Yeah, it would have like a like it was all in like red line art. And so you could do the checklist like you would have in the books for the subscription service, and that would be the backer board. And it was clear cellophane with the postage stamp thing, like from coming out of a machine, that had your address and then the cost of the postage and their return address. And it had the it opened up like a bag of chips.
Yeah.
I remember them. Yeah, they were that. And I tell you what, those are hard to find now, and people want them. They want them just for the nostalgia factor, and I've had a lot of problems getting them. So,
all right, fellas, we are at the 1 hour mark. This is the introduction, the first episode of Slabbed and Raw. This will be coming up weekly. This is being played as a replacement for Comic Aficionados, because I currently am in the hospital with my wife and a baby.
We can't fully replace it. That's our show is awesome.
I don't understand what's going on.
So people will come here, they'll find this, and this is going to be a weekly show. I haven't decided if this is going to be a live broadcast on Sundays or if it's going to be put up on Mondays. Let us know if you want to see this live, if you want to interact and talk about these things with us. Let us know in the comments section. And also, we talked about, what are some comics to avoid? What are some of the comics to look out for? How to store your comics? Let us know some other stuff about comic book collecting you want us to talk about. Yeah. Is there a controversy out there? Are there specific grading techniques? Anything you want us to talk about? Put it in the comment section, because we're going to be doing this weekly, so we're going to have to talk about a lot of stuff. So,
and
you guys
wait.
Have anything else to say before you?
Yeah, here's a hot take: is grading subjective or objective? Yeah, that's a good argument to have.
It really is. Yeah, we'll have them all. It's going to be great.
That will probably.
We only had a CGC rep on the channel.
Yeah,
if only.
Actually, I am a CGC.
Well, isn't this convenient?
I'm not involved with their grading or anything of that sort. But I'm on their advisory panel. So
Right. Yeah.
So, all right, fellas, sounds like we're about wrapped up. Really enjoyed this. I hope people like it. And I will see you next week. We will have the Comics Aficionados, and this might be live. It might be recorded. I'm not sure yet. Haven't figured that far out in my future yet. Thanks
this was awesome, guys. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys getting with us on this.
Yeah. Let us know, please. And thumbs up, obviously.
Yeah, smash that like button. Holy shit.
Any questions you got, just ask.